We're going to learn the personal history of David Copperfield. We're going to find out there's no fathers in Kashmir. We're going to hold a grudge and we're going to go for the turning. I'm Van Connor.
And I'm Becks Perfect. And this is Off Screen, your 7-day guide to everything movies. Boom.
Welcome to Off Screen. Let's get cinematic. So, Bex,
That's a nice opener.
You like that?
Yeah,
right, let's get cinematic.
That's good. You feel energised for 2020.
I feel, it's my year, you see. It's my era. It's Age of Vans, what we
The universe is giving back to you this year, right?
Exactly. That's
good.
The plan.
Is it giving back to the world of movies?
I don't know. It's an iffy week.
Yeah, it is
Very
an
iffy week.
Yeah.
The best movie out this week is one that I don't think any mainstream audience is ever really going to see, but...
No, the number of Biffa Awards it's been nominated for probably suggests.
So let's start then with what I'm surprised is this. Where does this sit with the BAFTAs? It's the personal history of David Copperfield.
I'm not sure it's sort of... do you know what? I think this is a lot of waffle and fodder rather than it actually accumulating any real significant award within it. Okay, so the personal history of David Copperfield is obviously based on the Charles Dickens novel, which is semi-autobiographical as well. And Dev Patel plays the lead. David Copperfield is kind of works his way from birth through life in Victorian society.
I was convinced a famous soprano was practicing upstairs.
Oh, exciting. Who?
No, I mean to say, it turned out to be you.
Oh, I see. A compliment. Thank you.
Copperfield?
I have to go. Proctor.
You could come up after my next lesson. I can sing you a piece.
Thank you. I'll bring something to throw at you. As in a bouquet of flowers.
Yes.
Bit of romance there as well, really.
A little bit of romance. It's not the kind of romance I would suggest.
It's not really a hot and heavy film,
no,
if we're honest.
It's not. But it is, do you know what? It is a colourful film. It's colourful in lots of different ways. So obviously the costumes, the look and feel of it doesn't look like normal Victorian London. It's not dark and dreary and full of pollution. It's actually bright and beautiful colours.
It's quite a Technicolor.
Yes.
It almost has that sort of, when you see the rosier, the rosier Oliver Twist adaptations kind of have that Technicolor appeal.
Definitely makes me kind of want springtime to come along a little bit sooner, particularly looking outside at the gloomy clouds today. But also, speaking of colour, it's got colourblind casting in this.
Dev Patel, yeah.
Dev Patel is the lead in this. His aunt is played by Tilda Swinton. One of his love interests.
Do we know what ethnicity Tilda Swinton is yet?
Well, she's a bit of everything. She's
proper
amazing.
Chameleon,
yeah,
isn't she?
She's a real chameleon. And again, she's Betsy Trotwood in this, and I love her entrance because we go back to kind of David Copperfield's birth. And she, as his aunt, is coming in, and the first thing you see is her pressing her nose up against the window, sticking her nose in, and kind of going, "Is it going to be a niece? I'm desperate for a niece." And then it turns out to be a boy, and she can't believe it. She also has a hatred for donkeys, which I think is hilarious.
That's the thing. I mean, there's moments of that kind of comedy in it, and they do seem to come about largely through Tilda Swinton and Hugh Laurie. I found the Peter Capaldi stuff wasn't quite as charming as I think it was intended to be.
Do you know what? It felt a bit like a play with him, where he's like, "All right, I'm going to play the dodgy old guy," you know. And
I kind of felt like if Hugh Laurie and Peter Capaldi had played one another's roles, it might have worked better.
Potentially,
in a strange way.
Yeah.
But that's something, for me, I'm the Iannucci guy. I mean, I'm a huge Iannucci fan. I don't know, I'm not...
Hang on, for anyone who doesn't know who
Armando
Iannucci, he did The Thick of It, he did the In the Loop,
Veep,
The Death of Stalin.
Death of Stalin, obviously, yes.
Yeah.
In the Loop was the movie of Thick of It, wasn't it?
Yes.
And Death of Stalin was just amazing.
Yeah. It's a very particular type of humour. So, again, you love it. I'm not a massive fan. It doesn't, it makes me chuckle. I'm not like a fanatic about it. And I think actually this will divide the audiences. The humour is not for everyone on this.
But that's the thing. I don't think this is standard Iannucci humour. There are moments like that Tilda Swinton scene when is it a niece? That feels very Iannucci.
Yes.
But the rest of it feels almost slavish to the adaptation element. It feels, because there's obviously
it's
not his
600
material.
pages being whittled down into 2 hours. I mean, hats off to Iannucci for that. That is not the easiest thing to do. No. But I think, as a fun adaptation, it's a bit of a dreary week on film. It's a nice sort of, silver lining in terms of something that's light-hearted. It is fun. If you like things like Sense and Sensibility, if you like Pride and Prejudice, those kind of movies, you're a fan of seeing, great literature turned into a lovely adaptation for the big screen or even the little screen as well, this will be up your street. And in fact, there's a bit of a theme of that with this week's films as well, because we're seeing, adaptations coming out in the cinema. But for me, there's a lot of hype, there's a lot of waffle, there's a lot of tube posters.
Do you think it's justified? That's the question.
I'm not sure. I'm just not a massive fan of period films. I'm not a massive fan of period adaptations. I don't have the patience for them. And if I don't know if I've never read David Copperfield, I don't really get it.
I feel like after the critical success that was The Death of Stalin, I feel like this is Iannucci very cynically saying, I know what it takes to be given proper credibility now.
Yeah.
So I'll remove a lot of myself from it, do another period piece, and see how that works.
But
I feel that's what happened.
Do you know what? It's actually more of a passion project. So he was an Oxford graduate.
Yes, I know.
And he, in literature, he loves the idea of it. You can see the prose coming through in this and how he's constructed the script. The artistry of what he's done is great.
Yes.
I think it's literally down to preference on this one.
I think so as well.
Yeah.
Our mutual friend, Chris Lisette from The Mirror, he and I were talking before one of the other films this week, and I asked him, can you tell me why you enjoyed it so much? Well, I really love the book for starters, and I'm like, okay, there it is, right there.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it now.
Yeah.
If you're one of the Dickensie files, as I've been calling them, you're going to absolutely lap this up. If you are just me and you're an Armando Iannucci fan,
you might feel slightly disappointed.
You might feel a bit let down. There's certainly no Jason Isaacs moment in this.
No.
I will say that. It's one thumb up from me purely for the filmmaking credibility of it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm one thumb up as well. I just think I'm not a massive Iannucci fan. I'm not a massive reader of Dickensian novels. So for me, I'm going into it a little bit blind and I wasn't sure how I was going to get through the film.
So, speaking of cheerful stuff,
yes,
this week, No Fathers in Kashmir.
Oh,
this is
hardly, I'm sure this sounds cheerful.
Just from the title alone is quite blunt about what you're in for, really, isn't it?
Okay.
This is not what you would call a charming rom-com.
Okay.
Is
it a documentary?
It's not a documentary. It's a narrative feature, but it's got a very a cinema verite kind of a style to it. It's meant to be as naturalistic as possible. Also including relatively inexperienced cast members. And it's filmmaker Ashwin Kumar. This is his third project about Kashmir. He's made this drama in which a 16-year-old British girl of Indian origin returns to Kashmir to meet her grandparents, who she hasn't seen since she was very, very young. Her father disappeared many years earlier in Kashmir, prior to them leaving the country, and it is this eye-opening experience of this sort of selfie-obsessed British teenage girl, played by relative newcomer Zara Webb, and her sort of learning what the reality of life in Kashmir is like. And the film, although it is a drama, does begin with sort of this real world statement of, look, this goes on all the time. This is based on 1,000 stories of things that have happened. It's an amalgamation, but amalgamation. It's an amalgamation of some of those stories, but a lot of this is based in reality, and that sort of comes up towards the end as well. It's a very eye-opening film. There is this phenomenon I wasn't aware of half-orphans, as they're called.
Half-orphans?
Half-orphans.
Okay.
In which the central character, what's her name now? Noor, the main character is called. Noor, for instance, discovers that she's identified as a half-orphan because all the fathers get taken as sort of distance within military organisations. And it's a story I genuinely didn't know. There's some absolutely horrifying stuff in there. There is a scene in this that's straight out of Hotel Rwanda in terms of just absolutely horrific it is. It has run into some controversy, noticeably in India, surrounding the age rating of it.
Which was?
Well, the filmmaker wanted it for, despite that scene I've just mentioned, it's not particularly gratuitous. The idea was to get the film rated as low as possible so that it could be seen by everyone.
As many as possible.
As many as possible. And the Indian Censorship Board had evidently other ideas in mind.
So essentially put it at an 18.
That kind of a thing, yes.
Well, they're there to protect the people that are watching it.
I mean,
is that justified?
I grew up in censorship culture, and I would argue no, it's not.
Okay.
But that's my own personal. You can feel about censorship however you like. For my money, an excellent film. I think Zara Webb is tremendous.
Well, there you go. I was going to say you picked up on the fact that it's a relative newcomer, acting cast in this.
But there's a rawness to her.
There's a rawness to it. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think the inexperience adds to it.
Helps with that reality, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That making it feel more real kind of a thing. I think she's one to watch out of this, but Ashwin Kumar as well. Really great movie from him. It's not a popcorn muncher by any stretch of the imagination. This is not a date movie by any stretch of the imagination either. Do see this though on Sunday afternoon if you want something harrowing and gripping. Yeah, No Fathers in Kashmir, 2 thumbs up from me. Absolutely
fantastic. Welcome back to Off Screen. Now, we're taking a horrible turn. I say that with love and affection because we are...
Are you, though?
No, I'm not sure. I mean, a half might be. We are doing a bit of a horror segment.
We kind of are, aren't we?
2 horror movies back to back. We're continuing also the idea of an adaptation of a novel as well with our first movie that we're talking about.
Adaptation of a novel and then an adaptation of a J-horror film as well, really, in one sense. Or reboot. A reboot of an adaptation.
Goodness me, the technicalities are just running away with us. The first movie we're going to talk about in this segment is The Turning, which is an adaptation of the 1898 Henry James novel, it's a ghost story, really, which is The Turning of the Screw.
Is it that old, the book?
1898, yeah.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
I need to read more.
Yeah, I know. Well, you should at least Wikipedia it.
Shouldn't I?
This is basically now adapted and set in the 1990s. I think it's 94.
It's kind of just after Cobain died, because I think early on we get a mention.
And they make a big thing about Kurt Cobain dying in the first sequence of the movie. But the 90s thing is not really ever explored in it. Anyway, let me tell you kind of what the premise is. It's about a young teacher who takes a job looking after a girl and her brother whose parents, aristocratic parents, have been killed in a car accident. So she goes in essentially as a live-in nanny or governess.
That's it, the governess. I was trying to remember what the word was.
Yeah,
it's governess, isn't it?
But I think governess is quite an old terminology for it. So to put it, she's basically there as a teacher, a live-in teacher for them. And as she spends more and more nights in this big old spooky old mansion with 2 kids and a live-in governess as well, things get more crazy.
I thought I was going crazy, but I'm not. He's here. Oh. You know that, don't you? We need to leave.
No. I can't. I'm sorry for everything.
Flora won't leave without you. We need to go.
Can't. You won't let me leave.
Oh, we should say off the back of that clip that the boy of the 2 children is Finn Wolfhard from Stranger Things and It.
And the governess is Mackenzie Davies.
Mackenzie
who
Davies,
you'll recognise from the latest Terminator film.
Martian for me. Oh, San Junipero.
Yeah.
I was trying to come up with that the other day. Like, what would people know?
As in Black Mirror?
Yeah, Black Mirror, San Junipero.
Yeah.
That's the biggie of Black Mirror, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Deservedly so. I think
she's a great actress. And look, I'm going to start by saying I don't fault any of the performances in this.
Do you not?
I think Mackenzie Davis is fine in this.
Right.
Finn Wolfhard is okay.
They're all fine in their own distinct films. Right, and that's the thing, because I was listening to you tell me the plot of that, and I was genuinely on the edge of my seat with suspense, because I wanted to know what you thought the film was about, because I don't think the people writing it do. It seems to have about 9 different plots that it's doing at any given time, and then, spoiler alert, they end the movie suddenly and then just do another ending, and then they don't bother wrapping anything up.
Right, to counter what you're saying, some would suggest that the filmmaker has actually steered too close to the source material, therefore not given themselves enough artistic license to make this interesting for a modern day audience. Now, don't get me wrong, there have been many adaptations of The Turning of the Screw. There was a BBC adaptation which I did watch. The positive thing about that is that the story itself is relatively timeless. You can place it in different eras, which I think works. Yeah. What I would have liked to have seen is some reasoning as to why it's set in the 90s, because apart from a Walkman, Kurt Cobain's death, and lack of mobile phones, there's not much more to it.
That's the Joker dilemma, isn't it? It's why is this film set in the 80s? There's no specific reason that it would be. I mean, there's actually a massive contradiction in that case. But I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
Just Mercy had this recently as well.
Right.
Just Mercy is set in the 90s, and you don't notice for the first half of the film because it's just not important.
Yeah.
Which is odd.
But the interesting thing about this movie is is that it just never gets going. So this movie should be a combination of jump scares and psychological horror.
Yes,
right?
it should. But it would have to have a through line for that to work.
Yes, and it doesn't. And the thing is that you're spending the majority of this movie going, get on with it. And then the ending is so curt that you're kind of going,
Which one though? Because
what was the point? And this is the thing. And then we were educated when we came out going, what the hell have we just watched? By one of the other critics going, actually, the original Henry James novel does have an indecisive ending.
Yeah.
And that made me think, sometimes you've got to just do what's best for the movie and take it into a different direction.
Right. I will counter as well by saying, do you know who the filmmaker is on this, out of interest? Because I wasn't overly familiar with her.
No.
Right, so it's Floria Sigismondi, who is a Canadian artist, art filmmaker, photographer, and music video director. She has worked with artists, I've got the list in front of me, artists such as Justin Timberlake, Rihanna, Leonard Cohen, Katy Perry, and David Bowie.
So she's making an hour and a half long music video.
That's the thing, and you start to wonder about the Kurt Cobain thing, elements like that. She's also directed things like Hemlock Grove and Daredevil for Netflix. There is a specific horror bent. She also did that Kristen Stewart Runaways movie about 10 years ago. So there is a very music video sensibility within her.
It's a bit like Hannah. I always found Hannah was like a...
kind of like a music video. And you wonder if that sensibility, unlike Hannah, if that sensibility here has found its way to bleed into the narrative as well. To be, do you know what? It can be more conceptual, which I think is absolutely the wrong position to take. It's worth noting, we were embargoed on this till quite late in the game.
Yeah, and that's never a good sign, unfortunately.
It isn't,
but I wish I could say, like, it's the first horror of 2020, right? And I was like going, well, okay, let's see how this year sets off in the world of horror. It falls flat.
No thumbs?
No thumbs.
No thumbs. No thumbs from me either.
No, a big waste of an hour and a half of our time. Make sure you guys don't waste yours.
Half a thumb because Mackenzie Davis exists. That's about it.
She's all right. I'd give half a thumb for the performances because they're okay.
But each one seems to be a story of a different movie.
Yeah.
We said that, that was the first horror film of 2020. Right, so funny experience. The following day, I was at Sony. I was talking to my friend Charlotte from the Evening Standard, and we were saying, what expectations for this? It's the Grudge, the Grudge, after all these years, what were we expecting? And my sarcastic response was, well, at least we know it's not the worst horror film we'll see this week, because we'd already seen The Turning. I will admit this comes close.
Okay, so The Grudge, I just said to you before we got in the studio today, I said, I really love the original. And you're like, I love how you're calling the Sarah Michelle Gellar one the original. And I was like, well, it's the original that I've seen. I have not seen the original.
Actually, weirdly, that was one of the few J-horror remakes that was actually, I think probably the only one that was actually directed by the guy who had directed the original.
Yeah.
Because I think he did one of the sequels and then flew to the US straight away.
It also has a very special place in my heart because it's the first date that I ever went on with my husband was to go and watch The Grudge.
And you've been holding a grudge all these
years. I've been holding a grudge ever since. I thought that those Grudge movies of the time were great horror movies.
Well, this is meant to be sort of a sidequel, a sort of spin-off of them.
Yeah.
As in, same thing, different day.
Okay.
This takes place in multiple time periods, as the Grudge movies tend to do. It's non-linear, it's chopped all around the case. You've got different casts in different time periods. Here, those casts include, on the one portion, Demian Bashir and, Andrea Riseborough. I almost said Charlotte Rampling for some reason. Andrea Riseborough. Yeah, I know.
She makes very interesting decisions.
She
does.
This is
not one of the better ones.
The other part, you've got John Cho. In another bit, you've got Lin Shaye. And it is about this house with the iconic Ju-on curse that will, bring about terrible things amongst anyone who steps within it, all of which kicks off with a murder investigation between new partners Demian Bashir and Andrea Riseborough.
Why did it take so long to find her?
Well, this here's a service road. They only just started using it for the season.
Anyone come looking for her?
That's just it. The feds, they're already looking for her. Turns out she's one of those assisted suicide broads.
Find anything on her?
Usual stuff. I got an address, though. Directions in the glove box. 44 Rayburn Drive. Same place as the Landers case. Looks like we got another one.
So it's very wannabe True Detective in the early portions, as you can hear from that little.
I wonder if this was actually massively mispitched.
I cannot figure out for the life of me what anybody involved in this film was thinking. There is a moment very early on in which Demian Bichir and Andrea Riseborough are introduced for the first time. Demian Bichir walks into a room and says, "Who's that?" And the answer he gets is, "Oh, that's Officer so-and-so. She just moved here. Her husband died after a prolonged battle with cancer that lasted several years, and she's now a single mum struggling to cope." And you're like, you couldn't have just said that was so-and-so. Like, is there a need for this level of everybody?
Explanation.
Yeah, everybody speaks in exposition. And then you've got the time-jumping element that comes with all these movies, which is hard to get a handle around normally.
Yeah.
But when you're bored, it's even more difficult. You've then got the same exact jump scare that's just recycled like 6,000 times. I mean, if you're being literal about it, probably a good 40 times the same exact jump scare happens, which incidentally was done way better in the movie Lights Out, if we're being direct about that as well. It's not particularly interestingly shot. It's Nicolas Pesce, who's come up doing things like was The Eyes of My Mother, which I thought was quite an interesting horror film. This is infinitely less interesting. Okay. It's still got Sam Raimi attached to it as a producer because it goes to Ghost House.
They need some sort of name to get it boosted.
And that's it. And you do think that there's just a wasted cast in here. I came out of it thinking, really, zero thumbs, because I was in no point interested in this movie.
Do you know what? I haven't seen any marketing about it. I haven't seen any sort of, there's nothing to promote it out there.
It's had the life beaten out of it, out of the US, to be honest, ahead of reaching us. I think it reached the US kind of at the very beginning of the year.
Okay.
And we're a fortnight behind. There's a moment in this movie in which, I forget her name, Oscar-nominated actress in the last few years, just says with complete seriousness, "Oh my God, I think your house is haunted." And she does it as if she's giving them new information. And genuinely, you have never heard an entire room full of critics erupt into laughter so quickly.
Never a good sign.
Yeah, and not like the fun kind, like when we saw The Prodigy that time about the evil child, and someone said reincarnation explains everything, and we fell out of our chairs laughing. Yeah. But no, 0 thumbs from me. This is an absolute waste of time. I haven't been this bored by a mainstream studio horror film since The Rings reboot in 2017.
So, this week, on the big screen, you're quite limited, if you trust our opinion, of what is good at the cinema. That's a shame, but there's obviously stuff that's still playing out from previous weeks. But we've also got, in our next segment, coming up very shortly, all the things that you can watch on the telly box at home, which hopefully, Van, is a little bit better. Welcome back to Offscreen. Now, we are hitting our movies on TV, so you do not need to move from your sofa if your exercise regime is done and dusted for the year. Do not worry, we will keep you sorted 7 days a week. We're kicking off with Saturday, Bone Tomahawk, film for 11:05 p.m. Western.
It is. It's a Western with a bit of a shift, though. Did you see this when it came out, this one?
Yeah, but do you know what? It's not cemented in my mind.
Ooh, wow. Okay, I'm surprised. You may want to revisit then, because I thought this was absolutely tremendous. This was the first big film from S. Craig Zahler, writer-director who went on to do Brawl and Cell Block 99 and Dragged Across Concrete. Dragged Across Concrete was a bit of a letdown. This and Brawl and Cell Block 99 were amazing. Basically, you've got a Western. One of the women from the town is taken. Kurt Russell forms a posse to go out and retrieve her.
And his posse
consists of Matthew Fox and Patrick Wilson and Richard Jenkins.
This empty area is a mountain range. Forbidden territory has been for centuries. Somewhere in the northwestern part of it is a place my people call the Valley of the Starving Men. Troglodytes are said to live there.
That's days from here.
How many of them do you think there are? It won't matter. You have no chance against any number of them.
I'm riding out with Mr. O'Dwyer because there isn't a choice for either of us. Rest of you can stay.
You'll be killed.
It's a good old-fashioned kick and kill 'em Western, but with just a little extra spice, I will say. I don't want to ruin it for you. I will say, just this ain't for the faint-hearted.
So all I'd say is, I suppose if you're not a Western fan, I don't think I really am. Is it worth stretching yourself to watch this?
I think so, because once it throws the hammer down, as I like to say,
tomahawk down.
It throws the tomahawk down. This case, boy, do they go for it, and it ain't quite what you'd expect. It really does subvert expectation. I loved it.
Okie dokie. So film for 11:05 p.m. on Saturday. That is Bone Tomahawk. Moving on to Sunday. Now I've just had to ask you
what this was.
I thought you haven't written down like the full, like Guardians of the Galaxy title or something like that, but no, I'm wrong. Rise of the Guardians, film for 2:50 p.m. What is this again?
This is also not to be confused with Guardians of the Tomb, the Kellen Lutz, Kelsey Grammer Chinese spider movie from a couple of years ago.
As if we could get this confused.
Yeah, we got to get our Guardians in line. So this is Rise of the Guardians. It's an animated movie produced by Guillermo del Toro and featuring the voice talents of Chris Pine, Alec Baldwin, and Jude Law, in which Jack Frost finds himself recruited to join the Guardians, a posse of sort of fairy tale or mythic characters who basically serve as the Avengers of the fairy tale and fantastical world and have to take on the darkness as played, the boogeyman, literally the boogeyman, played by Jude Law. And this posse consists of Santa Claus, Alec Baldwin, the Easter Bunny, Hugh Jackman, the Sandman, the Tooth Fairy, and Jack Frost.
I'm not a Guardian.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said.
Jack, I don't think you understand what it is we do. Each of those lights is a child.
A child who believes. And good or bad, naughty or nice, we protect them. Tooth, fingers out of mouth.
Oh, sorry. They're beautiful.
Okay, no more wishy-washy bitches out there doing who knows what.
You mean the boogeyman?
Yes.
What the hell?
It's really good.
What?
It's actually really good. Funny enough, I was talking to Johnny Hearn about it the other day because he said, it's something we watch every Christmas. And I can see why. It is a lot of fun. Just absolutely do check it out. If this were in live action, it would have been amazing. It would have been huge.
I would love to have seen someone trying to pitching this movie to those actors and being like, you're going to play Santa Claus, you're the Easter Bunny, we're all Avengers.
Sorry, Santa, by the way, as played by Alec Baldwin, is Russian as well. I should mention that.
Of course he is, because, as if it couldn't get more ridiculous.
Yeah, of course. Speaking of ridiculous, though, Monday, we've not got a clip for this one, so Monday, Paramount Channel, 10 p.m, this is a ridiculous movie. DMX takes the door of a bank vault using a grenade launcher and a chain, literally chains a vault door to a rocket and fires it through a rocket launcher. It's amazing. It's Cradle to the Grave, in which DMX teams up with Jet Li to fight Mark Dacascos. It is as ludicrous as it sounds. It is literally...
Have you just given away the whole plot?
No, I gave away
Isn't
about...
that it?
No, that's about the first 5 minutes. I've not even gotten to how Michael Jace is in there, how Chi McBride runs the world from the world's greatest prison cell, or how there's actually an ATV chase, a quad bike chase, to the sound of X Gonna Give It To You. I mean, come on.
I do love that tune.
Yeah, exactly, right? So, moving on. Tuesday, you'll like
Well,
this
hang on, just recapping on that.
Yeah.
That's on Paramount at 10 o'clock.
That's Paramount at 10, yeah.
And you've just also had an insight into Van's personal life there, because he was very passionate about that. Tuesday, Cherry Falls, the horror channel, 11 p.m. If you didn't know what it was, it's a horror, because it's on the horror channel.
Well, there is that, but also, have you ever seen Cherry Falls?
No.
Oh my God, brace yourself.
This week, for me, I think it's going to be like a new awakening in movies. I'm just not sure how I feel about this.
You brace yourself for this. This is a real movie that exists.
We need video. My face is not impressed.
About 3 or 4 years after Scream came about, when the teen horror thing was in full swing, you know that cycle of the teen horror boom.
I do.
We got Cherry Falls in the year 2000.
I have seen the poster.
You will have. It stars Michael Biehn from the Terminator series. It stars Jay Moore, who used to be in movies. I remember him.
Yep.
And it stars the late Brittany Murphy. As a teenager, this is how far back this was. A goth teenager, too. It takes place in a small town called Cherry Falls and sees a serial killer before the teens of the town. But his MO is he'll only kill virgins.
4 teenagers have been killed, a 5th viciously attacked.
All victims appeared to be virgins.
Everyone's decided to take themselves off the endangered species list and have sex.
I need to ask you a personal question about how far you've gone, base-wise. Can you go further?
Tell me about Laura Lee Sherman, tell me! That was 25 years ago.
Yes, the practical solution is let's all have an orgy and lose our virginity. That's literally where this goes. It is insane.
What? I was literally like, that is so selective.
It really is. I mean, it's a garbage film, but it's kind of fun garbage.
Okay.
So absolutely
it's early
watch it.
2000s.
Yeah, it's also
garbage.
Yeah, it's also got a sequence in which the late Brittany Murphy tries to be kinky. That's just all sorts of brilliant cringe, like just worth seeing for that.
Are they are the girls wearing like oversized belts that don't have no purpose? Possible cowboy boots.
Did I or did I not say this was the year 2000?
Yeah.
Did I or did I?
Yeah. I know, like the handkerchief tops and things like that.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm just reminiscing for my own purposes of my youth.
Exactly.
Here.
The girl all the bad guys want.
Bring back those days.
Exactly. Speaking of bringing it back, then one that we do bring back every time it's on because it's a classic. It's the one, the only.
Deepest blue is my hat is like a shark's fin. Deepest blue is my hat is like a shark's fin. Yeah, blue is my hat is like a shark's fin.
Deep Blue Sea.
Oh yeah, I mean, you gotta love it. I mean, that LL track is just that's an all-timer. That might be my favorite movie theme tune ever. Deep Blue Sea. Scientists create sharks. They make them too intelligent, and they have to fight their way out of the lab. That's it.
I found that's always the issue when we're trying to, genetically modify sharks.
Do you have this issue?
I
as well?
have this issue every time, and LL Cool J just never answers my calls.
Keep telling you, you've got to double check your figures.
I know.
Yeah, anyway.
So 5-star, 9:00 on Wednesday. I mean, this list is getting better and better as we go along.
Right, you've got to repeat what you asked me about our next film, which is Thursday night, film 4, 9 p.m. It's Snowpiercer. Bex, what was the question you asked me about Snowpiercer?
Is that the one with the trolls running down the mountain?
Yeah.
And he was like, no. And then I was like, but the trolls? There is a film that came out at the same time as Snowpiercer with trolls. What's it called?
Troll Hunter. Yes, what is in a name arose by any other name. Snowpiercer is the film I voted the best film of the last decade. It is a film by Bong Joon-ho, who has Parasite in cinemas shortly, which is up for all sorts of awards. It stars Chris Evans, it stars John Hurt, it stars Tilda Swinton, Jamie Bell, Ewan Bremner, Ed Harris, Alison Pill, Octavia Spencer. I can go on and on and on this film. It is basically George Orwell on a train, and it is amazing.
As in the beginning, I belong to the front. You belong to the tail. When the foot seeks the place of the head, a sacred line is crossed. Know your place. Keep your place. Be a shoe.
And you know what's also amazing is that instead of watching this movie, I watched a movie with trolls running down a mountain.
It's honestly so good. This is its UK TV premiere, Thursday night, 9 p.m, film 4. However, it is available on UK Netflix as well. So if you want an alternative way to view it, I cannot recommend it highly enough. I think it's an absolutely amazing film. There is a TV adaptation coming out in a matter of months that will star Jennifer Connelly in the Tilda Swinton role.
I love Jennifer Connelly. Bring back the Labyrinth days.
However, unlike Tilda Swinton, Jennifer Connelly will not be doing the faux Maggie Thatcher thing, which is kind of what made it for me. So our last film.
And no trolls.
No trolls in this one, sorry.
Just checking.
So what we got for our last film of the week, Miss Perfect?
Oh, we've got An Officer and a Gentleman.
Thought you'd like this.
Yeah, 5 select, 10 p.m. Oh.
Do you remember what Richard Gere's name is in this film?
No.
Zach Mayo.
What an interesting condiment.
Quite the conundrum and condiment. So Zach Mayo, he's the aspiring Air Force
do you know what?
recruit,
I don't even remember this. I just remember thinking how hot Richard Gere is, and I don't even know the plot line other than there's an officer and a gentleman. But he just is. He's gorgeous in this.
Well, that's it. He's the guy. He's the aspiring
the
aspiring recruit who wants to graduate through the elite training routine.
Yeah.
Doesn't want to have his dropout report, or his DOR as it were, and he gets basically just tortured by his drill sergeant, played by Lou Gossett Jr. And of course, it's got that amazing ending, that iconic ending that we all remember. That love lift us up where we.
Don't.
Yeah, I know.
The tears are forming.
I know, right? And of course, there's the whole element of his, the girls in the town, the townies, and how they try and entrap these naval men. I'll tell you what, it's all about that Lou Gossett Jr.
I want your DOR. I ain't gonna quit. Spell it. DOR. I ain't gonna quit. Yeah, then you can be free, and you and your daddy can get drunk and go hole chasing together, huh? No, sir. DOR. I ain't gonna quit. All right, then you can forget it. You're out. Don't you do it. Don't you. I got nowhere else to go. I got nowhere else to go.
I got no place else to go. Done so much better in Wayne's World, I'm not going to lie.
It really is, actually.
It really
yeah, it really is.
You're nothing. You're less than nothing. What's keeping you here?
Amazing.
So, yeah, that closes out the week for us, doesn't it? 5 select 10 p.m. on Friday. Finish your week with a bit of gear, ladies and gentlemen. And we're back. And you know what? We'll keep you on the couch for now and talk about home platforms, VODs, discs, those kind of things.
Anything you want to watch
Anything you want to watch it on. So the first film we've got this week, I don't know if you saw, did you see this when it was out on theatrical?
Yes.
So Ad Astra, starring Brad Pitt.
Let's whiz through this because it's so slow, it's making my brain slow down. So it's Brad Pitt as like a colonel that goes into space, got daddy issues, all that kind of jazz. It's blooming boring.
Major, what can you tell us about the Lima project?
First manned expedition to the outer solar system, sir. Some 29 years ago.
And the commander was?
He was my father, sir. The ship disappeared approximately 16 years into the mission. No data was ever recovered. Deep space missions were halted after that.
Roy, we have something that might come as quite a shock to you. We believe your father is still alive near Neptune.
My father's alive, sir?
We believe so.
Yeah, he sounds about as bored as you'll be watching this.
Yes!
So, yeah.
It's such an arty-farty movie that's like, it's all about the visuals, but no substance to it. And Brad Pitt, what are you doing? Shame on you. Get back with Jennifer Aniston right now.
Really? That's a thing? Okay.
Where were you during the
No,
SAG
I know
Awards?
that. I'm just saying, does anyone want Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston to get back together?
The whole internet, Van.
No.
100%.
Off topic. Ad Astra sucks. There you go. Let's talk about Downton Abbey then, which I know we saw this together, didn't we?
We saw this together, and I'm not going to lie.
You watched the whole series afterwards.
I did, right? So all 6 series, and all the
And all the
Christmas
specials, yeah.
I loved it. So we went into this movie going, right, we've never seen Downton. Oh, God, we're going to have to review it. Well, yeah, we were like, they're going to have to review this. What's the point? And we came out howling. It is delightful as a movie, so much so that they're going to make a sequel to
Apparently
it.
about 4 years from now, apparently it'll take a while because he's busy and the cast are all like famous now.
Whatever, hurry it up.
But so the plot of this one is the royal family visit Downton
Coming
Abbey.
to visit Downton, and everyone is in a tiz.
Does Miss Smith know the truth?
Yes, she does. When I get home, I will hire another maid and Lucy can be my companion.
But that's much more suitable.
And I'm afraid you'll dislike it, but she says that she and Tom Branson have agreed to correspond.
Dislike it, I will lick the stamps myself.
You are amazing, Violet. You haven't won, you know.
I don't believe in defeat.
I love me some Maggie Smith in this flick, yeah.
Who doesn't?
I do.
She is a doll in this. Like, that is the reason why I went back and watched the entire series, and I am hooked. I know who everyone is now, the upstairs downstairs thing. I mean, I am in love with this. So if you haven't seen it and you've never watched Downton Abbey before, this will get you into it. Go watch it.
My thought when I was watching Downton Abbey is, do you remember that bit in Family Guy when they do fancy British porn in Family Guy? I just kept thinking of that all the way through Downton Abbey. You know, Marjorie, we could be having sex right now, but that's not. You know, one of those kind of things. So let's move on to Hotel Mumbai.
Very different film.
Very different film. Very different tone. Yes,
Yes.
this is about the hostage situation in the hotel in Mumbai.
Yeah.
Starring Dev Patel.
Yes.
And Armie Hammer.
Yeah.
Armie Hammer.
And Armie Hammer.
Armie Hammer.
And
It's because I walked past a poster many years ago when the Lone Ranger was out.
Right.
And there was two guys stood in front of it just staring at it, dumbstruck. Remember, we didn't know who Armie Hammer was at this point.
Yeah.
And they were trying to work out how to say his name. And one of them, with the most confused tone you've ever heard, just stared at it, tilted his head, went, Armie Hammer? And yeah.
That film, I mean, you didn't know who Armie Hammer was at the time, and that film could have ended his career anyway.
Could have been, but this wouldn't. This is good.
Yeah, so Hotel Mumbai, it's like a step-by-step reenaction of the devastating terror attack on a particular hotel, Mumbai, in Mumbai. And it's
With the
how...
Taj Mahal Palace Hotel, I believe.
yeah.
Yeah,
and what happens is it shows lots of different points of view of people who are affected by this and how the terrifying night plays out.
It's got a little bit of it gets a little bit convoluted, I think, as the action goes on towards the third act, but the setup for it, and indeed the second act when it really gets into sort of what the hostages went through.
Yeah.
Ooh, that is suspenseful.
And you know what? It happened not like a decade ago, right? So there's lots of people
about
who
that, yeah.
So there's lots of people who actually will remember it from the news. There's lots of people who obviously will have lived through it, like, you know, from Mumbai and places, you know, similar, and families over here who would have had family members there. So to see this played out on the big screen is quite harrowing for a lot of people, but that's also a testament to the fact that it's actually a really, really good movie.
I mean, it got nominated for a lot of awards last year. I'm just looking at the list now. But, I mean, no Oscar love, obviously, but worth seeing. I would say worth seeing. And yet again, proof, Dev Patel, he's a hell of an actor.
He just gets better and better.
He really does. So onto the streams.
Can I tell you a little story that I saw about Dev Patel, about why he got into acting?
By all means, go on.
Okay, his mum, there was an open casting call, which, unbeknownst to him, was for Skins.
Oh, I was going to say, was it for that?
Yeah, and his mum was like, well, there aren't enough Indian actors on telly. Why don't? And took him out of school and took him to that casting, and the rest is history.
Excellent.
Love it.
So on to streaming then. Let's talk about this is a film I actually really want to watch again after having seen 1917. I think we said that when we reviewed it, didn't we? And that's of course Dunkirk, which is premiering on Netflix this next week, Wednesday the 29th.
I've got a little bit of an issue of it being on Netflix.
Yeah.
Not Netflix as a platform in general. This is a film for me I feel you have to see in the cinema.
Well, you and I saw it in IMAX on film and 35mm and IMAX, 17mm, 35.
So what I would say is go and watch it on the biggest telly you can. Turn all the lights off. Make it pitch black.
Yep.
No distractions. If you've got a soundbar, use it.
You're weekend sailors, not the bloody Navy.
You should be at home.
There's no hiding from this, son. We have a job to do.
Turn it around.
We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall never surrender. We shall never surrender. We shall never surrender.
Where's the bloody Air Force?
And the sound of that is why.
Yes.
Oof. God,
yeah,
what a movie,
that
right?
ticking clock, everything about it gets your heart racing. It's such an exciting movie. It deserves your full, unabided attention.
Also, it's Christopher Nolan. Come on, mate. Don't mess around. Just stick it on the biggest screen you can. Turn all the lights off and soak up the Nolan. It's just that's just what you do. I can't wait for Tenet. I really can't.
Yeah, I know. I'm so excited about that. Now, other things starting with a T.
What's a tenuous connection? Yeah.
Yes. Ted Bundy falling for a killer on Amazon Prime from Friday the 31st of January. Interestingly, I've watched Ted Bundy Confessions of a Killer on Netflix.
Good, we have had a few Bundy things this last year.
And then the Zac Efron brilliant reimagining of it.
Extremely
Wicked.
That
That was extremely, and
shockingly violent. Yeah.
That was very good, and I thought he was brilliant as Bundy. And now, having watched The Confessions of a Killer on Netflix, I know more about Ted Bundy, which will make this more interesting to watch. He's fascinating as a criminal.
Well, that's the thing. So this documentary on Amazon is largely from the girlfriend's perspective. And going into it that way. So basically what drew her in.
He loved her. So nothing ever happened to her. But all these other poor women,
of course, had very different relationships with him. Yes, my knowledge of Ted Bundy largely comes from the Zac Efron movie. I'm not going to lie. So I will be intrigued to watch this.
I think definitely watch this because there are a lot of confession tapes played out with him in prison. There's also, his absolute bloody mindedness that he wasn't a killer.
Wasn't shy of voicing an opinion or two, was he?
No, and it he even put himself forward as his own lawyer. I mean, he's bonkers.
He really was. But he did come up with one of the most unintentionally brilliant Halloween costumes ever. So, you got all those to look forward to on streaming this week. Next week, what have we got sort of coming out theatrically next week? Some interesting stuff.
We have A Lovely Day in the Neighbourhood, Tom Hanks.
Oh, yes, a
beautiful day in the neighbourhood. For me, it's always lovely. And we've also got Queen and Slim.
Ah, yes, this is Daniel Kaluuya's sort of stab at an Oscar this year.
Rich Jewel is out next week as well.
Have you had the pleasure of that yet?
No, but I will.
We've also got, and I've been looking forward to watching this, I hear it's bonkers, The Lighthouse.
Yes.
Have you?
Robert Pattinson, is it Dafoe?
Willem Dafoe, yeah.
Yeah.
Willem Dafoe, not Willem Defriend. And Robert Pattinson, which apparently is just those two in a lighthouse losing their minds. In black and white, which is about all I need from an hour and a half of a movie.
I'm not so sure that will entice me in. Sounds arty-farty to me.
I sat through Willem Dafoe as Van Gogh last year, so this cannot be as trying as that was.
Well, do you know what? Next week cannot be as trying as this week in movies. So there's that. I'm looking at my links at the moment. So that is this week, and that is next week, and we look forward much more to what next week's got to offer on the movies. So for you guys at home, it's probably a big DVD and TV binge for you rather than heading out to the cinema. There's not a huge amount on offer unless you are a big Dickensian fan. I've been Becks Perfect.
I've been Van Connor.
And this is Off Screen, your 7-day guide to everything movies. Thanks so much for listening. We'll catch you again next week.